Moving along on my Saturn project, I'm going to prepare and paint this aluminum valve cover. You may have already seen my other videos where I sandblasted and painted the oil pan, and then the one where I cleaned and painted the intake. Well, on this aluminum valve cover, I was going to sandblast it, but then I decided to use a chemical stripper instead. This was much less expensive than the sandblasting media, and I was concerned about damaging the aluminum surface. So this was about $8, and it gets good reviews and says it'll remove just about any type of automotive finish, and that it shouldn't damage the metal if you don't leave it on too long. After that, I'm going to go ahead and use the same primer that I used on my intake and the same paint that I used on the intake. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got a piece of junk plywood laid down. This is just a piece of paper sitting on top of it. I've cleaned the inside of my valve cover relatively well, and the outside I washed with soap and water to get the grime off. The instructions say to wear gloves, and basically to saturate the whole surface, let it work for about 5 to 15 minutes. The surface should soften or wrinkle up, and then they say to use a plastic scraper to clean it off. I'm going to use a plastic scraper and maybe this wire brush, and then rinse with water. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. I was sure to spray a lot on this lettering where the pattern is, fairly complicated and lots of nooks and crannies. So we can see everything's bubbled up. Hopefully it'll come off easy. This is my plastic scraper. And that's looking really, really good. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape the bulk of it off, and then I'm going to wash it with water and see where we end up. I've scraped and used a wire brush, and most of the paint has come off, but there are some stubborn spots. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some more of this, see if I can get it cleared out a little better, and then wash it off. Well, that seemed to work pretty good. We're mostly down to bare aluminum. There are a few little patches that need touch up, and then I'm going to rough up the surface before I prime it. This is where the wire brush on a drill is going to come into play. This came out really good. We're down to bare aluminum. It's nice and squeaky clean, degreased, washed with soapy water, and we're ready to go. So first I'm going to hit it with the high temperature primer, and then I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the high temperature paint. Alright, we've got our 2 coats of primer on here. They covered really nicely, got in all the nooks and crannies. I let it dry to the touch. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on my first coat of orange. Well, here we are. It's looking pretty good. This is 2 coats of primer and 3 coats of orange. Nice and glossy, good coverage. Really went on thick, but it didn't drip or run, so I'm really happy with it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is this raised lettering. I'm going to try to do just the surface of it with red. I've got this red paint that I used on my oil pan, and I've got a small foam brush. What I'm going to try is spraying the paint on the brush, then carefully touching it to the surface of the lettering.